Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Sunday evening, June 9, 2024. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video. I'd really appreciate it if you guys get this video up to 100 likes. If you don't know by now, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. We all like the video and then the YouTube algorithm pushes the video out to more weather lovers or rain lovers just like you guys, so that we can build this weather community in time for the peak of Atlantic hurricane season, August through to October, and in turn keep everyone safe. Share this video with your friends, your coworkers, your relatives, and even your church brethren, and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Leave a comment down below letting me know what the weather's been like in your area recently. Also, feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so let us take a look at this tweet from Jeff Berardelli. He's actually a meteorologist that posts some very accurate things about the Atlantic hurricane season from time to time. He states here in his post a comparison of June sea surface temperatures in active hurricane season. I included last year because sea surface temperatures were comparable to this year almost. Anyway, there's lots of potential energy just sitting there. Let's see what the season brings. So he highlighted this image that was showing the sea surface temperatures in the years that we had the most systems within the last about 20 or so years. So June 2005, I remember how active that season was, and we see all of the oranges that represents the above normal sea surface temperatures across the main development region and the Caribbean, and that season gave us 28 storms. 2010, we see that the sea surface temperatures by around June that year were a bit more robust than in 2005, and that year gave us 19 named storms. In 2020, remember how record breaking that year was in general. That was one for the books. Look at the sea surface temperatures in 2020 during the month of June, and that season gave us 30 named storms. That's still the most on record since records began many years ago. We even have June 2023, very warm sea surface temperatures, but remember, last year couldn't have been that active, especially considering that there was an El Nino going on across the eastern and central Pacific. But with this year expected to be a La Nina, it's gonna be quite concerning, especially with these very warm sea surface temperatures across the main development region, the Caribbean, in the month of June. So we have some question marks here regarding how many storms we're going to be getting. It's going to be interesting to see the difference with 2023 and 2024, considering that that year was an El Nino year and that gave us 20 named storms, and this year is going to be a La Nina year. So let's keep our eyes peeled. I'll definitely be here to keep you posted with exactly what unfolds. Taking a look at the U.S. National Hurricane Center 7-day graphical tropical weather look, we can see that as of their latest update, tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days. Taking a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening, we can see that there is a cold front which is more stationary than anything else across portion of the southeastern United States. Another frontal system right there across the northern section of the North Atlantic. We can also see the ridges of high pressure that we know are responsible for sending the easterly trade winds across the main development region into the Caribbean. And with the easterly trade winds, we know they send the numerous tropical waves along the intertropical convergence zone, not to mention the amount of dust that's coming off of the Sahara Desert right here, pushing all of that from east to west. If we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic, and we can see that the sun is definitely starting to go down as we speak, considering that it is 5:40 p.m. now. It's not down as yet for us in Jamaica, but it's getting there. We can see that we still have a lot of clouds across portions of the Greater Antilles, including the Bahamas, section of Cuba, the Cayman Islands. All of these clouds definitely bring some amount of shower and thunderstorm activity. Lots of activity taking place across portions of Central America, which is a good thing, considering the fact that they've been experiencing quite the heat wave for the past couple of weeks. You can also see a lot of thunderstorm activity as usual taking place across sections of northern and South America, and we see the clouds associated with the tropical wave right there to the east of the windward islands, not to mention the numerous clouds associated with the intertropical convergence zone that we know has to do with where the air from the northern hemisphere meets the air from the southern hemisphere, and all of this causes rising air and a lot of clouds to build up. So there's always going to be a lot of cloud cover showers and thunderstorms right there. It's only a matter of time before the ITCZ lifts northward a bit and starts to send more of these tropical waves into the Caribbean. We'll be talking more about the rest of the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today. It was stated that we would have had some lingering rainfall across sections of Jamaica on Saturday night, and then we would have had some afternoon rainfall across sections of some northern and western parishes in Jamaica on Sunday. And just for reference, we know northern parishes, well, western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall. So St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney. While northern parishes, we're talking about those parishes on the top side of the island. So Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, and Portland. And what ended up happening? Last night at around 9:10 p.m., we saw that we had some lingering showers as the Cuban Doppler radar was posted on our Twitter page. Keep in mind that these posts aren't only made on our Twitter page at Weather Jamaica, but on our Instagram page at weather.jamaica, on our TikTok page at Weather Jamaica, and on our Facebook page at Weather Jamaica 876. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there, as we make numerous posts throughout the day that you can't afford to miss, posts that we don't make here on our YouTube page. So we see the Cuban Doppler radar was showing that we were receiving some amount of greens and even some yellows in there that we can see by the key on the right that represents light to moderate to even some slightly heavy rainfall in the yellows. For sections of Westmoreland, Hanover, even sections of St. James got in on the mix, as we can see here, 10:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 9:10 p.m. Jamaica time. So we definitely got in on that lingering rainfall that was predicted. And then for the afternoon now, we saw a post that was made at 3:41 p.m. highlighting the visible satellite image. And we saw some amount of clouds, especially right there across sections of St. Mary and even sections of St. Anne. So some isolated showers for sections of some northern parishes. And we even had some clouds coming in, more so from the southeast. And we definitely had some squally weather right there across sections of southern St. Elizabeth and even sections of Manchester. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images before the sun was starting to go down, we can see all of this playing right out. That southeasterly flow across the island definitely brought some amount of clouds and showers into sections of Manchester, sections of St. Elizabeth. We even had some clouds coming into sections of St. James and even sections of Hanover right there. So we definitely had that rainfall that was predicted for sections of more so western Jamaica than northern Jamaica, even although we definitely had that shower activity across sections of western St. Mary, section of eastern St. Anne. And we can see all of that playing out on the Cuban Doppler radar images. If we look closely, we can see that rainfall right there to the northwest of Hanover. Even when the run was beginning, we saw that rainfall across the waters to the north of St. Anne. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, considering that the sun is still up, we still have 29 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 29 degrees Celsius in Kingston. But by around 4 a.m. on Monday, temperature should dip down to about 25 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 27 degrees Celsius in Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, this map from the GFS is showing 18Z on Monday. When you calculate that, that's 1 p.m. on Monday. And we see Jamaica right here embedded in some slight yellow colors that we can see by the key on the right. That represents 1 degree Celsius above average temperatures. I know the average temperatures for the month of June across the island are about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we take a look at the thermometer. 90 degrees Fahrenheit is about the same as 32.2 degrees Celsius. So we should be receiving anywhere from 32 to 33 degrees Celsius at most for Jamaica's temperature on Monday. Taking a look at the dry air map, we can see the tongue of dry air as represented by the yellows, the oranges, the reds, touching all the way across the main development region from Africa into portions of the Caribbean. A lot of dry air right here to the north, across the northern portion of the North Atlantic, some dry air across the portion of the Gulf of Mexico, and we still see that we have a lot of blues across the portion of the central to the western Caribbean, the southwestern Atlantic, that we know represents a lot of moist air. But as it relates to the Sahara dust forecast, this map is showing the forecast for 2 p.m. on Monday, June 10, and we do see all the browns that represent the Sahara dust stretching all the way from Africa across the main development region into the Caribbean. And Jamaica is definitely going to be getting on some amount of dust, but we're on the low end of the scale in terms of Saharan dust. We don't want to see those darker browns like what we're seeing here across the main development region. We know all of that has to do with those vigorous plumes that can cause some tremendous hazy skies, not to mention trigger some amount of respiratory illnesses such as asthma or sinusitis in some people. But all of this is pushing westward in the flow of the trade winds from the east. So it's possible that it could be expected, even although most of the dust has been dwindling, the more west it goes, it's only a matter of time before we get some vigorous plumes in our neck of the woods. Taking a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we still see those blues surrounding the island. And we can see by the key on the bottom right that represents anywhere from 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights. And that's because the winds are going to be coming in from the east southeast for tomorrow, and we see those greens, those brighter shades of greens, that is, that we can see by the key on the bottom right, that represents anywhere from 15 to 20 knot, even some light shades of yellows in there that represents close to 25 knot winds. And we also see that we're going to be having those least amount of winds across portions of some northern and western parishes. So who knows, we might rule out some isolated shower activity again for sections of northern Jamaica, maybe even sections of some western parishes, and whatever comes off of the sea from the south and the east could be affecting sections of some eastern and some southern parishes as well. You know, that usually plagues us during the morning hours, but we'll see if it can spill into the afternoon as well. As it relates to the actual rainfall that's predicted, we see a consensus on both the Euro and the GFS models for some isolated rainfall. We see the blues across eastern and southern Jamaica that we know represents rainfall. This is about 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's actually 4 a.m. Jamaica time. So we'll see if that actually unfolds or actually happens. Skipping ahead now to about 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 8 a.m. Jamaica time, we still see much of the same. The blues that represent rainfall across sections of some southern and eastern parishes in Jamaica. So maybe sections of Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Thomas, Portland might get in on the mix, as we can see both the Euro and the GFS models are in consensus with this. And then by afternoon now, these maps are showing 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 1 p.m. Jamaica time. Where do we see the rainfall? We see it across the very same spots, eastern and southern Jamaica, as well as sections of some northern parishes starting to get in on the mix. So maybe sections of maybe western Westmoreland, sections of Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, maybe sections of St. Mir might get in on some of that. And we see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in consensus with this. So maybe some isolated showers are in the forecast, especially with that east-southeasterly flow of winds across the island. Either way, we're indeed grateful, and I'll definitely be here to keep you posted on my other social media platforms if this forecast does indeed come to fruition. As it relates to what the accumulated precipitation forecast maps are showing within the next 24 hours, we see the general consensus that most of the rainfall across the island should be across eastern Jamaica. GFS showing up to 0.28 of an inch of rainfall is represented by the yellow colors, as we can see by the key on the right. Euro showing something similar, but the most in the way for rainfall is being forecasted for south central Jamaica, maybe Manchester right there, where we see up to 0.33 of an inch. Either way, we'll take the rainfall. We're in the month of June. We're in our secondary rainy season. We'll take all the rainfall that we can get to put some kind of a dent in the heat, or put some kind of a hold on the heat that most of us have been plagued with. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So as stated, we have a lot of clouds still associated with the trough across portion of the Western Caribbean, section of the Bahamas. Lots of clouds bringing showers and thunderstorm activity. Section of Central America getting in on the mix. Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana. And we see a lot of moisture associated with the intertropical convergence zone. All of this pushing westward, so definitely some more rainfall in store for sections of Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Even sections of Barbados might get in on the mix as well. If we take a look at the Doppler radar images of the northeastern Caribbean for today, we don't see that we had much at all taking place. Just some stray showers right there to the east of Antigua and Barbuda. And if we take a look at the Barbados radar, we don't see much happening across Barbados right now, but it might have been sprinkling earlier in some spots. We see some rainfalls represented by the blues and greens passing to the north from east-west. Maybe have affected sections of southern Martinique, maybe to affect sections of St. Lucia later on this evening. Sections of St. Vincent and the Grenadines definitely getting in on some of that rainfall as we speak. Even sections of Grenada might get in on some rainfall later on. We can see that most of the rainfall is concentrated to the south of there, affecting sections of Trinidad and Tobago. If we take a look at the weather view of Doppler radar images, we can see that afternoon rainfall that section of Cuba definitely receiving, just like what we saw in the visible satellite images just now. Some rainfall passing to the north from east to west, to the north of the ABC Islands. Some rainfall affecting sections of northwestern Venezuela. Some rainfall affecting sections of Suriname, French Guyana, Venezuela. Not to mention that rainfall right there associated with the activity from the trough to the east of Belize, sections of Honduras getting in on the mix, Mexico, and even sections of southern Guatemala. If we take a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, we see a mixture of those grays and yellows into orange colors that represents anywhere from some average to above normal temperatures that should be plaguing majority of the basin tomorrow. But we see majority of the blues that represent below normal temperatures should be affecting sections of the United States right there. Taking a look at the Saharan dust forecast for 2 p.m. on Monday, we do see all the browns that's representing the Saharan dust stretching all the way from Africa across the main development region into the Caribbean. And we see a lot of darker shades of browns right here across the main development region, and all of this is pushing westward. So there's definitely going to be some amount of hazy skies, especially across the eastern Caribbean. So ensure that you all have your meds handy. Taking a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we still see that majority of the Caribbean should be getting in on those darker shades of blues that represent anywhere from 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights, and the lighter shades of blues that represent anywhere from 0 to 0.5 meter wave height across the Gulf of Mexico. And it makes sense that wherever we have the strongest winds, that's where we're going to be having the highest waves, as we see more so when we have those brighter shades of greens across portion of the central to the western Caribbean that represents anywhere from 15 to 20 knots, maybe even gusting to 25 knots. So we see those yellows in some pockets, and we see the general direction for these winds coming in from the east across the mid region, curving northward to kind of an east-southeasterly fashion, then from the southeast across the western Caribbean. As it relates to the rainfall forecast now, we can see that both the Euro and the GFS are in consensus with where the rainfall is expected within the next 24 hours. So definitely sections of the southern portions of Florida, not to mention sections of Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, right here with Jamaica on the edge of that rainfall. So definitely sections of the Cayman Islands, Costa Rica, Panama, sections of Colombia, maybe section of the ABC Islands might get on some isolated shores. Venezuela in the mix, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana as usual. And we see some dots of greens here that represent some isolated shores. So maybe section of Barbados, section of St. Lucia, Martinique, and Dominica might get in on the mix. And the thing is, if we look at both the Euro and the GFS malls, we're going to be seeing something similar in terms of the rainfall that's expected. And we know that when they're in consensus like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.